So, what was this pivotal point? Like when this idea of becoming a mindset coach came to your mind? Because I'm pretty sure there is a good story behind that one.
Well, I think that I always knew law wasn't for me. Even in my very first year, I was already looking for other options. And I guess because I wasn't happy from within, I started to work on myself. I had this yearning for something more. I knew that I wasn't using my strengths, but I started to think, maybe I could do this.
So, what did you think when you made this decision?
Oh, look, I had a lot of people that did not understand it. I had people openly tell me it was a stupid move. I left law with no plan in place. My parents thought I was mad. My dad particularly was always the person in my life that I yearned for validation and approval from. So it was very, very hard to tell him I was leaving my smart job because this isn't it, and I know there's something more.
What would you say someone they are doing a job that pay the bills, but there is absolutely no passion and no love whatsoever, and they feel there is this nudge?
I would just say to take the first step. There was so much fear and doubt, but I guess my desire for something more was a lot louder. And so I just had to say.
And what do you think is your gift?
Ooh. Well, I think my gift is
Hi everyone and welcome at What is Your Gift? Today we have Jenny O'Neill. Jenny, she lives not far from here in Cromwell, and I've met her about a month or two ago. And Jenny has a very specific journey. She started as a lawyer and now she is a mindset coach. So I think it's quite an interesting journey, and I really want to dive into this transition and what was exciting of being a lawyer and why you made this change. But first of all, welcome, Jenny.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Such a lovely day today in Central. We are in autumn and it's sunny. It's going to be a warm day.
It's beautiful. Yeah, it's nice to see a little bit of sunshine.
Yeah, definitely. So tell me, Jenny, you started as a lawyer in another life. Maybe if you want to tell us how you ended up as being a lawyer first.
Well, it's not a very exciting reason. I actually grew up and wanted to be a PA, a personal assistant. And I was speaking with my brother, who is a few years older than me. And he said to me, why don't you aim a little bit broader or, so that you've got a few more different paths to go down? And he suggested the idea of being a lawyer. And honestly, I had no idea what that would entail. You're so young at the time, you have no idea where you might like to go. So I went along to be a lawyer for a day, and I thought, okay, this could be something I might like to do. Really have no idea. And honestly, that was it.
Oh, wow.
I just went along to this event and decided, okay, I think this might be something that I might like to do. So I signed up for law school and I went.
Wow. And is there any specific field that you chose during your career as a lawyer?
Well, for most lawyers, it really just depends because you don't specialize at university. So I left law school and just got a job wherever I could, because it's always hard when you're a new grad. And I ended up in general practice law. And then as I went throughout my career, I worked for a number of different law firms, thinking to myself that if I found my niche, I might find it more satisfying than I did. And I always thought that perhaps I might like to do employment law. So I did actually seek out a lawyer who ran a practice out of Christchurch, and I was living in Queenstown, and he did employment law. And I did that for probably only about a year and a half, and then I was made redundant throughout COVID. So long story short, I did specialize a little bit in employment law, but mostly it was just general practice throughout.
So, what was this pivotal point? Like when this idea of becoming a mindset coach came to your mind? Because I'm pretty sure there is a good story behind that one.
Yeah. Well, I think that I always knew law wasn't for me. Even in my very first year, I was fresh out of university. I was already looking for other options, and I was at a very reputable law firm in the North Island, and I went to night school to study to be a beauty therapist, which is obviously a completely different path. And honestly, I don't even know what prompted that, because I never wanted to be a beauty therapist, but I think I just saw an opportunity and thought, maybe that will get me away from this. And I did nothing with that at the time. And I carried on being a lawyer, and I moved to the South Island. And then I started to get into a little bit of personal development and started reading books. And I guess because I wasn't happy from within, I started to work on myself. And the idea to become a coach, I guess, evolved. I did a lot of work trying to figure out, where am I going? What do I want to do? I had this yearning for something more. I knew that I wasn't using my strengths, that although I knew what I was pretty good at, I knew that law just wasn't it. And I think that I have always believed that we're met with the right people on our journeys when we need to. And it must have been in my very last year working as a lawyer, I crossed paths with a lawyer, ex-lawyer, who was a coach, and I joined her program. And I think that was the first sort of inkling for me, or maybe there was one little before that from listening to podcasts of coaches, but I started to think, maybe I could do this. And I think that was really where that started. And then I just decided, yeah, I'm gonna go off on this journey.
There are a few things that I want to unpack here. Uh, What I found fascinating is that at some stage, that first, when I believe it's hard when we're young to find what we want to do. His and I guess the way the at school it's created doesn't make it easy, because you sort of need to go into a path, and yeah, fingers crossed it will work out. But what is incredible is that life is always giving us synchronicities. And I think the fact that you went into beauty therapy, but you listened to a lot of podcasts, and it opened yeah, like a journey, and you touch base something very powerful, this idea of working on yourself, personal development. Do you want to maybe dive a bit more into what was missing in your life when you were a lawyer and when you were, in this other career?
I never felt fulfilled.
Mm.
And I always believed that if I changed the job and got that right, I was going to feel fulfilled. And although there's no doubt that my work now fulfills me, along that journey, I learned that the fulfillment comes from within.
Mm.
And, you will understand that, of course. But I think back then, I was just so unhappy that I was always tying my happiness and my fulfillment to something external. And I think that was what I was seeking when I started this personal development journey, and then where it ended up was somewhere completely different.
And why did you feel this call to become a mindset coach and not another type of coach, or not, a yoga teacher or beauty therapist?
Well, I think that I had all those things you just mentioned. I had thoughts about being those things. And I actually did come back to that beauty therapy stint for 18 months while I was in between being a lawyer and becoming a coach. So it did serve a purpose there, which is interesting. I did consider becoming a yoga teacher. I did consider a lot of things. But for me, I truly believed in the power of our mindset. And I started to learn about, which is probably similar to perhaps a lot of your beliefs around the mind body connection. And I started to learn how we can create illness in our body. And I just truly believed in the power of mindset. And that was it for me. I thought, this is what I want to do because I believe in it so deeply, I guess. And I had never had that passion for my work as a lawyer. So when I knew, and this was what I was constantly thinking about, was asking myself the question, what could I just talk about for hours on end? What excites me? And I noticed that it was those sorts of topics that I could meet someone like yourself and just talk for hours. And I knew I was touching on something important there.
Maybe for our listeners, it would be interesting to, and you can unravel and pack it the way you want, how you've made this transition, like regarding like tangibly. So you were saying that you went for about 18 months as a beauty therapist to do this change, but what else have you done in regarding to help yourself in personal development, or any podcasts, any courses? What else have you tried or done to help you in this path?
I've just dabbled in a lot of different modalities along the way. And when I first entered my job as a beauty therapist, sorry, and I'd left law, I said to the owner of this day spa here in Cromwell, I just was completely honest. I want to, at some point, start a business to be a mindset coach. And she fully supported it. And she had actually worked with a lot of coaches herself. And I just feel like once I made that decision, things just started popping up. So I remember I started off, as I mentioned, with the coaching course I did with the ex-lawyer. And then my partner was in the UK at the time, and there was this program called the Thrive program, and it was a psychologist who had worked with patients on and off for years and wasn't seeing much improvement. And he created his own program that he just believed was game changing. So I thought I need to do that. And just the pure fact of my partner coming across this person in the UK, and he called me and said, you need this. This is what you need to do. This is right up your alley. So I got on a call with this guy, and sure enough, I was sold then and there. And from there, there's been I did a little bit of NLP, so neuro linguistic programming, and yeah, just different. I've just, I guess I'm good at listening to those nudges. So something will appear on my path and I'll go, I need that. I need to go there. But it's a fine balance between needing something to prove to the world,
Mhm.
and because I've noticed it can be easy, and I've noticed this from myself in my past and also from clients, that it is easier to get wrapped up in the I need another certification before I can start or before I can put myself out there. It's easy to hide behind that. And it was important to me that I just got started where I was and I owned where I was and I let my practice evolve as it needed to. I guess I was going to say I always trusted that, but of course there was doubt, a lot of doubt along the way.
It's funny that you're mentioning in doubt because I do believe, well, it's not I do believe, but it might have been quite hard for your entourage, for the people around you. It looks like your partner was there and was holding you and pushing you toward your goal, which is wonderful. But I suppose that maybe family or friends probably thought, well, I'm curious to know what they were thinking when you decided this, like, because being a lawyer, it feels like, you all set up, you're all good, and you're gonna have a good, good money at the end of the month. And so what did they think when you made this decision?
Oh, look, I had a lot of people that did not understand it. I had people openly tell me it was a stupid move that I was making because I left law with no plan in place. I hadn't even decided then that I was going to do beauty therapy in between. I just quit. I just resigned. I was midway through that first coaching program, and I think I remember being asked a question, and I asked my clients the same question now. I was thinking of a time when you felt truly alive. What were you doing? And I remember feeling it, pinpointing a moment and thinking it was just it was enough. I just said to myself, I'm off to go find it. I'm off to go ignite that fire and that passion. And I went and did a cold dip in the lake. And the next day, I went in and told my bosses that I was resigning. And absolutely, I think my parents thought I was mad. My dad, particularly, was always the person in my life that I yearned for validation and approval from. So it was very, very hard to tell him I was leaving my smart job, that paid fairly decent salary to do I don't know what, to follow my passion that I don't even know what it was. So there was a lot of hesitation, but I think that I didn't let, at that point, I was so certain that I was going to find whatever I was looking for. I said to myself, I'll go work in a supermarket. I'll go do whatever I need to do to figure this out because this isn't it. And I know there's something more. And I'd got to the point where I thought, other people have found it. Other people are out there living their dreams. So why can't I?
There is so much power in what you're saying because you really followed what felt right within, even though people around were out of love, wanting to protect you and making sure that you were safe. But yeah, there is a big power in what you're saying. And what would you, yeah, how would you say someone that is maybe in this particular moment in their life that they are doing a job that pay the bills, but there is absolutely no passion and no love whatsoever, and they feel there is this nudge. So what would you tell them to encourage them to step in their power?
I would just say to take the first step. And when I say the first step, I remember having endless conversations with my partner who is supportive. But I did say to him the other day, you're the one person who has really believed in me and supported me on this journey when a lot of people around me doubted me. And he said, I believed in you because you believed in you. And I was like, wow, that's really powerful. And when I say I believed in me, don't think that there wasn't fear and doubt. I know you know this, but to your listeners, there was so much fear and doubt. but I guess my desire for something more was a lot louder. And so I just had to say to myself, what is the first step? And you will encounter hurdles, because I did. I'd left my safe job being a lawyer. I was now earning minimum wage as a beauty therapist. So just to take a sidestep here, the one thing my partner always said to me was, why don't you stay in your safe job that pays well and start this thing alongside that? Now, this is something I can't really explain to anyone, but it just didn't feel right. It felt like I would be living a lie while trying to create my dream, because every day that I woke up and went to this job, I just felt like I need breathing space. I needed some breathing space to just exhale. And I think that brave step that I took from resigning led me into the wellness industry, which was perfectly aligned with starting a coaching business. It was just so much, I don't know, it just felt a lot more aligned. So, just circling back to that first step, I had to figure out what's my first step. And I just said to myself, I'm just going to start a business. And at that point, I didn't even have any special qualifications. I just trusted that I had coached my entire life. And I was in the room as a beauty therapist, and I was, helping a lot of people unravel different things. And I realized I've been a coach my entire life. So I'm just going to do it. And I'm going to figure it out along the way. And getting to the first step, I decided, right, I don't know why, I think it was my partner again said to me, why don't we just start a website? Get some photos, we'll start a website for you. And I didn't have any photos, any professional photos. So I decided, right, I'm going to get a photographer. I'm going to get some really nice photos done. Now, I don't know that that's necessary, but for some reason, I decided it was, but I couldn't afford the photographer. So I went out and I got a second job.
Wow.
Going to work at the post shop to sort packages in the morning from 4:30 till 7:30, and then I went to my day job as a beauty therapist so I could afford the photographer. So I say all that to say that I think when you really decide and you just go, I'm just going to do this, what's the first step? Let's do it. I think that often we do know it's there. We're just terrified, and it's clouded by all of our fears and our doubts. So I see it as my role as a coach to help unravel all of that so the person can see. Because I think when you go to someone like me or yourself wanting guidance, you think you don't know the answers.
Mhm.
But that's the whole point, right? Like, you do know the answers.
Yeah.
And I sidetracked off there a wee bit, but
No, you haven't. Because what I love is by giving your example, your what you've been through and what went through in your mind is really helping people to understand that there is not really one path. I've seen some people like myself, for example, I needed to keep my other job safe, and that was my safety net. But it's quite powerful that for you it was, no, I need to be completely true to myself, and it was a lie otherwise. That's very powerful, and it's another path. And it's what is powerful in what you're saying, because it hopefully people that are in this situation, like, okay, I just need to do one step. And there is something that you mentioned earlier that I also found powerful, because it happened to me as well. And I think at the moment there is a bit of issue. A lot of people feel that they have a job, but they feel that they're not at they feel lost. And when you said you went into this beauty therapy and you had this beautiful boss who encouraged you when you said, like, I want to be honest with you, and it's what I love because you've been honest. And by being honest, it allowed your boss to actually hold you until you were ready to fly on your own and do what you really loved. And I do believe that there is something very powerful in that because so many people have job. They only keep the job because they don't, because they are scared, as you were saying. And so maybe if there is something else that you want to add to that, that would be great.
I couldn't agree more. And I do view that as a very pivotal moment because when I went into the interview with that boss for that job, knowing in my soul this is not my forever job. And I did something different. We met at a cafe here in Cromwell, and I said to myself before I walked through those doors, I have lied to so many people and to myself for so many years, walking into interviews for law jobs and saying, yeah, this is where I want to be in 5 years, 10 years, and knowing dead well that it was a complete lie. And I said to myself, I'm not doing this again. If she doesn't want to support me on this, then it's not the right job for me. Wow. And it really was that moment of, I'm just going to be honest. I'm going to tell the truth. I think we think about the worst case scenario. And I guess at that point, I felt like I had nothing else to lose. Uh, and and I did just want to acknowledge what you said. I know it's backtracking a wee bit, but about how you did keep the safe job because that's what you needed. And I honor that. I think that I probably didn't make the smartest choice just walking away from a safety net because I didn't have savings behind me. I could have lasted about a month, I worked out. All this time spent in a smart career, and I wasn't very smart with my money. So I think that it is, sometimes you do have to make the smart choices and grin and bear the thing that you don't really want to be doing so that you can get to where you want to go. But I think there's things you can do in the meantime. And again, sidetracking a wee bit, I used to do this thing in law where I said to myself, how can I romanticize my life right now? And I used to think, okay, I'm not where I want to be. And I know this is not where I'm going to be for the rest of my life. But how can I find joy in it now? Because I started to learn that if I can't find joy where I am I constantly going to be moving the goalpost and I'll get to the next step and I'll just never be happy? Wow. Yeah. So I really practiced trying to find joy. And one of the smallest, most basic practices I did, I used to turn up to the office early before everyone, even just 10 minutes. I used to sit in my car and set a 7-minute timer. I just closed my eyes and I just breathed in and out. And that was my, I don't know, an intentional practice, I guess, just reminding myself that I'm okay. I am safe. Yes, I'm not fulfilled in this job, but it's not a life sentence.
That is such an important point that you are raising here. Because I remember being through the same thing as well. All this time doing something and you know that it's not aligned anymore with what you want or what you feel you want to do. Yet you need to find this happiness in the present moment. Because you're right. Otherwise we push it always further from us, or we are looking for something ahead and then we never fulfilled. And I think it probably helps as well to manifest a bit faster our goal when we are happy in what we're doing right now.
Without a doubt. And I don't think I really realized that at the time, but it makes sense to me now that you are going to get where you want to probably much quicker when you're feeling good and you're aligned as opposed to sitting in the lack and the fear and the doubt. So a lot of the time I was doing things without actually realizing, but in saying that every single day I was listening to podcasts to improve myself. So probably I was taking a lot in without even realizing, which is where the personal development really kicked things off for me.
Wow. So, looking back at your time when you were a lawyer, what skills or way of thinking you've helped you to develop the tools that you have as a mindset coach? Because I do believe what we've done in the past has an impact or help us.
I do as well, absolutely. And I actually look back now and I really honor that time that I spent as a lawyer. And I think that probably the biggest thing that it gave me was, or that I learned and developed, was my relationship with people and my connection to people, because I would sit in a client meeting or a client interview and really want to get to the bottom of why, whatever. I might be writing someone's will, or and they would bring up a little something and I would want to unpick that thread, completely unrelated to law. And I think my biggest strength was just people, was just being fascinated by why we do what we do. So although I didn't actually pursue any criminal law, I think even if I did, and it just felt too heavy for me to be wrapped up in that, but I still had a fascination for why they were doing what they were doing, as opposed to, what some people would just look at and think certain behaviors are disgraceful, or, I would see, okay, but what happened in their childhood
Yeah.
that led them to that? And you can see how that was already making a connection to, me as a coach, because I still have those same curiosities now that carry through. So I think probably that, and problem solving. I honestly think that as a lawyer, you're just solving problems. And it's much the same being a coach, except you're helping them solve the problem themselves and you're asking the right questions. And a lot of my role as a lawyer was very similar to that.
And you were mentioning that you are also a good listener. You've developed this skill to listen and be able to reflect on what people are saying.
Exactly, which is a great coach, right? You got to be able to listen, because that's
Mhm.
where all those hidden gems are in your client, right? Is trying to pinpoint. And I think that was when I started to learn different coaching techniques. I really started to learn how you could identify where someone was at just by the way they're speaking,
Ah.
the language that they're using. And I found it fascinating that I could see, for example, if someone's thinks in a bit of a perfectionist sort of thinking style, or an all or nothing thinking style, and you could hear it coming across in their language and the way they're speaking, and I'd be connecting all the dots as if I'm a lawyer, trying to pull it all together.
Oh, that's awesome. And so from now on, so you have this 4 weeks program, and you're working also with women. Maybe if you want to tell us a little bit more about what you're doing, what is this passion that you're doing now?
So I actually did start off working with men as well. My first client was actually a male. Um, but I did evolve into primarily working with females. And you might understand this. I think I just understand females a lot better. I just didn't and I'm not saying I'll never work with males again, but my program sheTHRIVES is my 4-week workshop, and it's designed for women who are wanting to step into their next chapter, like I was back then, but you're carrying a lot of the fears and the doubts. And I think the reason I made it specifically for women is just to feel safe in that room. And I think that it's just that we can relate to each other really well and speak really openly. And who knows, maybe at some point in the future that might change. But my one-to-one clients have been very much the same. And I think although I didn't really place any, what would you say? Not limitation. What's the word? I there wasn't any criteria for who I was to work with one to one. I guess I'm getting at. Um, but I did notice the same type of people starting to gravitate towards me because that was my main message, right? Was that if you're in an unfulfilling job and you're not happy, that you probably do have a desire for something more and you probably actually do know what that is. And I just developed this ability to tease out from people. They'd say to me, but I don't. I have no idea what I want to do. And then often by the end of a conversation, we could tease out certain things. And I'd say, see, you do know. um, so, yeah, a lot of my work one to one has been around mindset in terms of, like, most recently I worked with someone who was overthinking and in sort of anxiety cycles. So it's not always just career. Um, because as we know, career is just the external thing, right? But often, as I mentioned earlier on, that desire for more fulfillment and more purpose comes from within. And so I see my work as helping people find that from within, and then the external things naturally just start to change and improve because it creates a ripple effect throughout all areas of your life. Really?
Mm. And you also are a mom.
I am.
If you want to maybe tell us a bit about this journey, because I do believe, especially as a woman who wants to create a business, how to juggle between all those different hats that you have to wear during the day and how it transformed you, how it helped you by becoming a mom.
It's certainly a juggle. And I will say that when I started my business, I officially launched that same month I found out I was pregnant.
Typical.
Yeah, it's always the way. And I do look back and think to myself, wow, I really did that because my son only went into care a couple of months ago. Well, no, it feels like a couple of months ago. It's probably been about 6 months, but he's just turned 2 for context. So the entire time I started my business, I was working as a beauty therapist. I was pregnant and then sort of in that journey to becoming a mum. And I think that as a mum, I watched my own mum. She had children, or her first child, quite young, and she left school when she was about 16. So I did watch her in those later years when us 3 children left home and went off to do our things. She didn't have, or you could see she didn't feel like she had much. She'd devoted her entire life to us children. And I think there was a part of me that saw that and didn't want to lose myself or always wanted to have something for me. And so I've always said to myself that this journey, this business journey, is not a race. I've only ever had one to one client at a time. I haven't taken on more than I felt I could because I've always had a lot going on in the background. My goal was always just keep your finger on the pulse so that you've got something to chip away at and build. And I think that it really has given me purpose alongside being a mum because I've still got me, and I'm not saying being just a mum isn't enough, because sometimes I think to myself, for sure, am I doing the right choice? Am I making the right choice? Could I be actually just devoting all of my time to my son and coming back to this? But everyone has to decide that for themselves. And I decided, no, I'm ring fencing a certain amount of time in a day, in a week, for me and my business. And then I'm working really hard to show up as a present mum outside of that. And I did think to myself the other day how motherhood has impacted my business journey. And I just feel like being a parent really teaches you how to be smart with your time.
Mm.
And everyone always said it to me. When you become a mum, you'll look back and go, what did I do with all my time? Just even being able to come home from work and sit on the couch and just watch a bit of TV. I don't do that anymore
I bet.
because I have to be really precious with my time. And so you've also got a child running around. But I do like that the time that I do have for myself is very intentional. It's spent doing something that really fills my cup. So I think, to sum up, motherhood has taught me to just be really intentional with my time, I guess.
It's very powerful what you're saying, and it makes me think when you were mentioning earlier, that the story with your mom and the choices that you have made. And it's interesting because often I think there is this unconscious guilt of the social pressure of you're a woman. If you become a mom, you need to dedicate all your time for your children. And I mean, we can't generalize it or say like it should be this way, but I really like the way you are saying that actually you don't want to lose yourself completely and finding this balance and becoming smart in what you're doing. And it makes me think, what if more women didn't have this guilt and were doing something and finding that they love and finding more balance? I wonder when the children are older, if it would make an impact as well in their relationship. Because often I see a lot of women that educated their children until a certain age, and then suddenly there is this crisis of, I haven't lived. And that can create clashes. I'm just wondering if there is not something around that.
Yeah. I definitely agree. And like you say, you can't speak on behalf of everyone, but I was having a conversation with a mum friend the other day who's got very similar values to me. And we were actually saying, do you know what? We don't carry so much mum guilt. And don't get me wrong, it's there. Oh, it's definitely there. You think, should I have put him in daycare? Should have I done this? But I think I've really tried to listen to my intuition, which I've done throughout my whole journey, around what is the best thing for me and what is the best thing for my child. And I think I made that connection quite early, that my mum probably put too much into us kids and not enough into herself. And with, the deepest amount of respect for my mum, because she did that because that was what she thought was the best thing. But we could see it. I think I learned that children are very smart. And I said to myself, actually, if I put my son into daycare, even for a short amount of time, and I give back to myself, I will show up as a better mum, and I will be better for it, and and he will benefit from that. So it was a win-win.
I love that. And I hope a lot of women, mom, will hear that because that is very important.
It
Mhm.
is.
So going forward, where do you see your business going? How would you what would be your goal? What is your dream around your business?
Well, I can tell you my very big, big dream. that I've had for probably the past 10 years. And this started well before I even thought about becoming a coach. And I do a lot of journaling. I've done a lot of journaling over the years trying to figure things out and where do I want my life to go and everything like that. And I love this idea that we have downloads. We have these ideas come to us and they just I don't know if you've ever read the book Big Magic.
No, I haven't.
Oh, it's such a beautiful book. It's a very short book. It's just this idea that, and she tells it in such a beautiful way. I think it's actually Elizabeth Gilbert. She wrote Eat, Pray, Love. I'm pretty sure it's her book. And anyway, she talks about in such a beautiful way that these ideas come to us. And if we don't chase them, someone else will end up with the idea. And it's not to say that that's wrong or that, it's just to say that she explains it in a way like these ideas are just dropping in everywhere and some people are taking them and running with them. And so, anyway, I had this idea when I was sitting in my home. I was living just out of Queenstown and I got all of these pieces of A4 paper and I just started writing, brainstorming it. And it was basically a gym for our mind. And I just let myself go crazy. I started thinking, a big venue and we'd have different themed rooms. And my partner, that beautiful supportive partner of mine, got on board and he said, yeah, and they can have you could have like a fire theme and an ice theme. And people come into this room and they might journal. They might, we might have an iPad that guides them through different meditations or visualizations. And I just went wild. I was like, yeah. And then there'd be like this room where you bring in dogs and we have like animal healing. And honestly, I just went wild. And so I think in some way that dream sits there and I have that in my mind and I don't put pressure on it, but I do love the concept. And I genuinely think to myself all the time, why does this not exist already? And I actually think it does. I did some research and I think there's similar concepts around, but we do devote so much time. Well, sorry, there's so many venues and different things out there like Pilates and yoga and gyms. So why don't we have that for our mind? It's such an important thing. Why don't we have gym memberships, you know, for our mind and we turn up every week or every day and we improve our mind and you bring in different practitioners and everything like that. You could be there, I could be there, we're all there. So to answer your question, I think that's the big dream. In terms of my business, I've tried really hard not to put pressure on it. I think that my business is still in it very much in its infancy because although it's been coming up 3 years since I started my business, it has been a slow journey. And I always felt like I was in this prison when I was a lawyer and like I'd trapped myself in there and it was like this life sentence. So I said to myself, I will never trap myself into a box. I will never tell myself that things have to be a certain way. I will just let this evolve. And I think there is a lot of talk around having a bigger vision and knowing where you're going. And I don't disagree. Like I've got that big, big dream sitting over here. But also, I'm like, I don't have to do anything. I don't have to carry on anything that is no longer working. So, I'm doing my one-to-one coaching at the moment. And I just finished up with a client. And I thought to myself, I really enjoyed that, but something is pulling me to my group workshops. So I'm going to hit pause on that. And someone the other day was referred for a one-to-one. And I just said, look, I'm not taking clients at the moment for one-to-one. I will let you know if that changes, but at the moment I'm focusing on my group workshop. And obviously that's also because I have limited time and capacity, but the main reason was because I just want to allow this to evolve and feel really good and not box myself into something, because I know that it's always changing.
Mm. So do you want to tell us a bit more about these group workshops that you are developing?
Yeah. So it's called sheTHRIVES. I'm actually holding it here in Cromwell. I will do probably online events in future, but I really wanted to bring to life the connections that you can only really get from being in a room. And I found the most beautiful venue. It's actually a yoga studio called Central Yoga, and it's out near the race course in Cromwell. They're actually a Christmas tree farm, and it is just stunning. I've put up some videos on my Instagram because the birds are just chirping, and it just feels like absolute serenity just even being there. And I went for a yoga class and I thought to myself, this is where I'm going to hold my future venue for sheTHRIVES. And sure enough, the yoga studio owner agreed. And so we're holding there a 4-week workshop where we spend an hour to an hour and a half each week, with the purpose that it's for someone who's moving into or wants to move into a new chapter. There's no real sort of expectation on what that might be, whether it is career. I haven't placed, it doesn't have to be career, but I think the person that I'm speaking to and the person that I often attract is wanting to move chapters in their career, with the idea that we're going to help them unravel what comes next. So that place where I was back when I was still a lawyer, trying to figure out what came next and thinking that I had no idea, but really there were a lot of seeds that had already been planted. And so we moved through a bit of a process over those 4 weeks around their thoughts and their feelings and their alignment with what they want. And then we'll have an action piece where we actually do take that first step. And every person's first step is going to look very different. But it is important to me that they move at their own pace, of course, but we do bring in a little bit of action, because and that action could be something really, really small. But I think it's not until we take that first teeny tiny step that things start to shift. So that's what we're going to be working through. It's kicking off next month on the 12th of April, just after Easter. And I'm really, really excited for it.
Wow, that sounds pretty amazing. Yes.
Yeah.
So if people are interested, how can they reach out to you? And
Yeah, so I'll send you the link. It's a link just on my website. You can register. The early bird price is actually running until the end of the month. So it's $180 is the investment. And we are limiting it to 10 spots just so that we've got enough room in this lovely, beautiful yoga studio for people to fit and to be able to input and, be able to give their own sort of feedback on their own journey without making it too crowded. So, yeah.
beautiful. I love that. So Jenny, is there any question that I haven't asked and you think I should have asked you?
No, I think we've pretty well covered my journey from being a lawyer to becoming a coach. And I guess I would just finish by saying that I believe that if something's on your heart, it's there for a reason. And it's just following that nudge like I did. It's scary and it's terrifying, but it is there for a reason.
Yeah. And I think everyone has it. So thank you for reminding us that.
No worries.
And what do you think is your gift?
Ooh. Well, I think my gift is helping people step into their truth. I think that we get lost through, social conditioning and all of the programming. We get taught that we go to school and this is our path, and we get wrapped up in a lot of the noise. And I believe that my gift is helping people to disconnect from all the noise, reconnect to themselves, and figure out what they came here to do. Because I do think we all have a purpose and a path, and it might not just be one thing, but I think the sooner we can reconnect with that and follow that is when we really start to thrive.
Wow. Thank you so much, Jenny, for this time with us today. I really appreciate, and it was a really lovely conversation.
Thank you. It was so lovely being here, and thank you for having me.